Well, it's been over 2 years since I've been to a concert, and I've procrastinated on making this concert review video for at least 3 months. And I knew I was going to procrastinate on it, so I made this list of high points to hit just so I wouldn't forget because I knew I would procrastinate on this video. And for anyone new to my channel who doesn't know, whenever I go to a concert, I like to keep up the tradition of making a concert review video, which is kind of like Stoned Gremlin Productions Midnight Screenings, where I just talk about what it was like in my own words in a going off style. And uh, and for any newcomers to my channel who may be wondering why I don't upload very much, the short reason is I have a full-time job that keeps me very busy, and when I'm not working, I have a bunch of other hobbies other than YouTube and listening to music, playing music, and writing music. And music and YouTube are toward the bottom of my list of extracurriculars, so it's really low on the priority list all the time, and I never get around to it. And even when I have time for it, I don't have the energy or motivation for it. So now I just decided, you know what? No more procrastinating. I'm going to get this done. So, without any further ado, before we get into Primus, we have to talk about the opening band, which is a band I personally have never heard of. And just so you guys know, I got there early, as I always like to do, so I can get in general admission in front of stage left, so I can be in front of Les, because as a bass player, Les is the one I want to be in front of and look at. And the opening band was Black Mountain, which I could tell because they had a banner on the projector of their name floating through space for the entire 45-minute set, and that was the only graphic accompanying their show. And their sound was kind of interesting. It was kind of 70s inspired, and their guitarist on a visual level kind of reminded me of my old guitar teacher. I did not learn from the guitarist in Black Mountain. He just looked like him, and the guitar playing itself was a lot of like pentatonic stuff, a lot of basic bar chords and open chords like C, G, and D chords, and like stuff like that. Both acts of the night had the bassist using bass pedals, so that was kind of interesting. The bassist used a Steinberger bass, which I bothered to make a note of that, but I will comment on Steinberger basses for a second because I've tried them before, and like people say, oh, the Steinberger guitars and basses are supposed to be the lightest, most ergonomic thing so that it's compact and easy to play, but I don't know, when I play one, it's just like really, I feel naked without a headstock and without a whole body that you can set on your lap, or a whole body that when you're standing up, resting up against your body. And I don't know, I just feel naked without it, and it just feels weird and off to me, and I've just never liked them for that reason. And I also don't think they sound particularly good, or at least the sound is not to my taste. Let's see, the drummer dropped one of their sticks, but not during playing. Again, noteworthy. And again, the set was only 45 minutes, so they didn't overstay their welcome. They were in and out, and the only other thing I really remember was there was one song where they used an acoustic guitar sample for one of their songs, and it just made me think, well, why don't you just play that on the clean section on the clean guitar, unless it's something that in the context of the song necessitates an acoustic guitar if there's any Black Mountain fans watching this, let me know if the acoustic guitar in any of their songs that absolutely require acoustic guitars necessitated. But anyways, enough about Black Mountain. We're here to talk about Rush. Oh, Primus covering Rush. I just brought up Rush instinctively first because Rush is my favorite band, and Primus is my fourth or fifth favorite band, and to have Primus covering Rush, let alone an entire album from Rush, it made me go, you know what, my first concert ever since the lockdown, what better place to start with than that? So, Primus, I love Primus. Besides Les being an awesome bass player, I think artistically their sound is very interesting because they have these serious and sometimes heartfelt lyrics juxtaposed with this wacky, off-the-wall sounding instrumental tracks, and it's just a really interesting sound to me. And a lot of my favorite bands are bands where they have a unique sound and no one else sounds like them, and Primus is a band where you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone else that sounds like them. And Rush is my favorite band because this is going to sound really pretentious of me, but when I listen to Rush and Dream Theater, and to a lesser extent bands like Opeth and a couple other bands like that, when I hear that music, I think this is the medium of rock music utilized to its fullest potential. We might as well just stop making new rock music because nothing else is ever going to top this. And over the years, people have tried introducing me to other bands like Tool and Mastodon and Meshuggah and like the new wave of gent stuff, and I listen to it, and I don't know if it's just not my taste, or I don't know if it's because I didn't grow up with it, but I listen to it, and they're great bands, and they have some very good songs, but it doesn't tickle my pickle, you know? It doesn't make me go, holy shit, that was fucking awesome, like the way Rush does, or Dream Theater does, or any of those other bands. But Primus, I still love Primus. So, a lot of obscure songs this night, and for those of you who don't know, this is, I actually lost count. No, this is my fourth time seeing Primus live, and they played a lot of obscure stuff this night. Like, they played Is It Luck, which they don't perform live a whole lot. They played Lacquerhead, which they don't perform live a whole lot. And the big show stealer for me, besides the Rush stuff, was Eclectic Electric, which is a song I never had heard from them before. But they started playing it, and I'm like, what is this song? I've never heard this song. And I wouldn't call it psychedelic, but it has this very unnerving tension building up in it, and it's just a really, really cool song. And if you don't like Primus, it's not like a typical Primus song. Like, it really stands out in their catalog, and I really, really like it. And now I've listened to the original studio version of the song a bunch of times, and it's one of my favorite Primus songs now. And the first 3 times I saw Primus, they did not play Tommy the Cat, which for the longest time was my favorite Primus song. I don't know if I really have a favorite Primus song anymore, but they played it this time. Granted, it was only part of it because they did a lot of mashing songs together. Like, they opened with Those Damn Blue Collar Tweakers, which turned into Lacquerhead, then back into Those Damn Blue Collar Tweakers. At least I believe it went back into that song, and they went in and out like that a bunch of times. And yeah, it was really cool. And Les did not have the rainbow bass. At least I don't remember him having a rainbow bass. I remember him having a fretted 6-string bass instead, which was kind of interesting. And they did not play, to my knowledge, any newer stuff. They only played their 90s stuff. And on to the main event, the second set of the night, which is the Rush stuff. Les dressed up in a kimono, which was fun to see, because when I saw them on the Chocolate Factory tour, he dressed like Willy Wonka, so appropriately he's going to wear the kimonos, again, like Rush wore on the Farewell to Kings tour. And the Farewell to Kings album, it's an album that I really love. It's not my favorite Rush album, but it's one of their better albums, and like, I really dig it. There's 6 tracks on the album, and 3 of them are bangers: Xanadu, Closer to the Heart, and Cygnus X1. And the other 3 tracks are, like, range from listenable to pretty good, but in my mind they're not bangers. But again, it doesn't really compromise the quality of the album to me that much, because they're shorter tracks, and Xanadu's an 11-minute song and Cygnus is a 10-minute song, so the length of those tracks helps make up for it. But anyways, one kind of annoying thing I saw that I thought about that set was Les's keyboards and foot pedals were not, like, in front of the stage the way Geddy Lee would have them. It was, like, off more towards center stage and further back toward the drum kit, and it was at this really weird angle where you couldn't see anything that he was doing when he was standing at his setup, and it was just really weird to me, and I don't really know why they did it. I loved Larry's guitar tone in this show, and especially during the Rush set, he really nailed that 70s Rush guitar sound, which sounds really, really good live. And the drumming from Herb was really, really good. And Les's bass tone, even though he brought out a Rickenbacker specifically for this set, it just sounded odd. Like, he brought out a different bass, but he didn't change any of the settings on his amp, and it just had this really weird tone, which works in the context of Primus music, but it doesn't really work as well in the context of Rush. And for me personally, it didn't sound that amazing. Again, it didn't really butter my croissant, but you know, it still worked. And Les has a weird voice, and he can't really sing like Geddy Lee. Well, not many people can sing like Geddy Lee, but he had to sing like 1 or 2 octaves lower for everything, because of course that album was the last album where Geddy was really going into the stratosphere. Well, he went into the stratosphere on Hemispheres, but he you could tell after Hemispheres he was like, I can't sing like this forever, so he started dialing it back, and his voice was just giving out. And if you listen to live recordings of Rush on the Hemispheres tour, there's a lot of shows where Geddy just sounds so tired, and like his voice is just like, I can't keep up singing this high. I need a break. I need a vacation. And I think that's really why he started singing lower, not necessarily to suit their sound, though it did suit their sound as their sound changed. But he's just like, man, I can't sing like this anymore. And and Les is starting to get older, so he can't really sing the way he did in the early 90s. So I can see why he sang like that. And from my perspective in the audience, it sounded fine. And one thing I was kind of looking forward to in the set was the audience reaction to Cygnus X1, because the last time I saw Rush was when they opened for Slayer, and it was one of Slayer's last shows, and Rush did like a shorter set before Slayer came out, and they played the first 5 minutes of Cygnus leading up to right before when the vocals come in. And of course, I was the only one in that audience who freaked out when I'm like, oh my God, they're playing Rush. But, like, one thing I was wondering about this show was whether the audience would start moshing again during the end of Cygnus, because during the Primus set of Primus material, I should say, everyone's moshing as they always do during a Primus show. But then for the Rush portion of the show, everybody calmed down and they just stood there and looked at the stage and sang along with the songs like Xanadu and Closer to the Heart and Cygnus X1 as well. I know after the show, I was walking past someone who was going like, oh my God, I never saw anyone play Cygnus X1 live before, and it's always been a dream of mine to see someone play that song live, and they played it live, and it made my life and stuff. But toward the end of the song, there's this 11/8 riff. I think it's in 11/8, where it's like boom, doo 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 doo, and it's like this by really heavy riff, especially by 1977 standards. I couldn't imagine how that sounded if you heard that when it first came out, because I listen to that song now and I'm like, oh yeah, this is heavy. Like, this is properly heavy, and I thought people would start moshing again in that part of it, even if they weren't Rush fans. But no one really responded to that, which kind of disappointed me, because I thought that's a good riff to mosh to. And I also made a note here that this is my third time I've seen Xanadu performed live. I've seen the real Rush perform it once. I've seen Lotus Land, the Rush tribute band, perform it once. And now I've seen Primus covering Rush performing it. And it's actually a personal goal of mine, just for fun, to perform Xanadu live, like, with other people in front of an audience of some kind. Like, I think Xanadu is a really fun song to play, and if you get a couple people together, even if you just get one other person with you playing one other instrument, it's a really fun song to play with another person or with other people, and I would love to perform that song live. And every single person I've seen perform it live, whether it be Rush themselves, Lotus Land, or Primus, they're having a lot of fun up there playing that song. Like, it's a fun song. And anyways, they came out for an encore with a couple other songs, and they brought the double necks from Xanadu back out for Southbound Pachyderm, which was the closer. And it was during the jam at the end that Larry really started going off, and he was like shredding on the 12-string neck and doing all these 3-note per string things and like going really fast. And I'm like, wow, man, that really reminds me, it was impressive, but it also made me think, man, Larry, if he did not hold back as much as he does, he would be one of my favorite guitarists, because I see like videos and I listen to songs from other projects of him experimenting with a different genre or doing this one crazy thing that sounds really cool, and I'm like, this guy has it in him to do some really wild stuff. But especially in the context of Primus, and not to say he doesn't have chances to go off in Primus, but like, Primus is a band where the bass comes first. It's the forefront of their sound, is that chordal bass and that percussive bass. So the guitar is more of a backing instrument in the context of Primus's work. And so I would really like to see some stuff, and if you guys know anything that really shows off Larry's skills, leave some suggestions in the comments below, because I really feel like Larry has it in him to be maybe not like a crazy virtuoso like Jason Becker or Steve Vai or Paul Gilbert or someone like that, but I think he has it in him to be a really awesome guitarist that makes me go like, wow, this guy is taking it to another level, you know? But anyways, at this point I'm rambling. That's pretty much all my comments about the show. If you can see Primus perform live and performing Rush material live, I highly recommend it, especially if you're a Rush fan or Primus fan. And even if you're a Rush fan but not a Primus fan, go see it just for the Rush cover portion, because, you know, the real Rush Rush as we know it is no more, especially after Neil's passing. So I highly recommend it. And the only other thing to really talk about is the venue in the city, which was in Philadelphia. And the only thing I really have to say about Philadelphia is I don't like going to Philadelphia for the cheesesteaks. I like going for the halal carts. If you ever go to Philadelphia between like 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., some stay open till 10 p.m., but others close around dinner time. There's halal carts all over the city, and they're all delicious. And restaurant halal food for me does not cut it. It doesn't taste the same. It doesn't do it for me. I have to go to Philadelphia and get halal from a halal stand, like whether it's chicken over rice, falafel over rice, lamb over rice, whatever you want. Like, it's so good. Go to Philadelphia, get some halal, and go to Primus's website and see when they're performing in your town. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say about that.